This episode of the Astro Powder Powdcast is brought to you by Gema. Gema's newest Optiflex Pro model, the CF unit, offers simple, reliable color change in 20 seconds. The Optiflex Pro CF unit is the perfect solution for lab use, powder quality testing, and coating of small quantities or small size samples. For more information, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. When you want to know that everything is covered, complete it with Gema.
Hello, all you powder coating fans, and welcome to episode 26, the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast. I'm your host, Joe Powder, a.k.a. Kevin Biller, and with me, as always, is my esteemed colleague, sidekick, and the coolest cat on this side of C-Bus, Nathan. He's our powder coating formulator dude.
Let me put on my sunglasses. It's the law around here. You gotta wear your sunglasses so you can feel cool. We're broadcasting from the Powder Coating Research Group studios in Columbus, Ohio. The purpose of the Ask Joe Powder podcast is to bring the latest news and technical know-how to the global powder coating community. So let's get it rolling.
But before we do,
Shout out.
I'd like to give a heartfelt shout out to Jace Kaiser. He's the general manager of Kaiser Blasting and Coatings in beautiful Lincoln, Nebraska. Jace was recently recognized as one of the movers and the shakers in our industry, as he is a recipient of the esteemed 40 Under 40 Award, which is given by Products Finishing Magazine. Jace runs the family business, which was started back in 1987 by his parents. But what sets Jace apart is his rather pervasive presence in social media. And for me, that's specifically LinkedIn, with his comments and his blogs and his vlogs. He's a true advocate for the powder coating industry. If it's not an astute observation about powder application characteristics or appearance of a recent powder that he sprayed, it's an earnest question about a nagging problem, maybe having something to do with defects or inconsistent performance. Jace is always engaging, and he pulls in the finest powder experts to weigh in on their perspective on the issues that he brings up. So hats off to you, Jace. Well deserved. Keep up the good work. And now it's time for the news in our Guess What segment.
Guess what?
All right, and it's time for our once per episode announcing the rescheduling of one of the major coating shows. Abrafati 2021, that's the big international paint and coating show in Brazil. That's been moved from late September to the end of November. It's actually November 30th through December 2nd, 2021.
You know, it's funny because that was a log jam. When we looked at September, it's like almost every single day in September was a major coatings conference event.
Everything got pushed back, yeah. So, this actually puts them in their own time frame, so maybe more people will be able to attend. But also, they're taking note of security for the participants and the quality of execution, all those sort of things. In the meantime, though, they're asking for abstracts. If you have a presentation detailing a high-level technical contribution and want to present research results, go ahead and get a hold of those guys, the Abrafati International Coatings Congress. And this is also interesting. Foreign speakers are welcome to present their lectures via live stream. So that should open up the possibility for a lot more people to be able to present to the show if they don't have to actually travel to Sao Paulo in November.
I think that's a sign of the times. I think we're going to see more of that just going on in the future.
More and more of that.
Regardless of, what goes on with pandemics and other crazy global events, I think it's just going to become, part of the scene.
Well, now everyone has the capability to do the live streaming, and it just makes sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Still like getting together in person, though.
Oh, for sure. All right, and Coding's World reports that Evonik has joined the MIT IBM Watson AI Lab. That's a bunch of letters, but Evonik is actually the first chemical company to participate in the MIT IBM Watson AI Lab. That's their supercomputer that they're developing artificial intelligence technology on.
To win Jeopardy, right?
To win Jeopardy. As part of the partnership, Evonik and IBM have already investigated new possibilities to create a collaborative intelligence between humans and machines in pilot projects. They've also succeeded in building artificial intelligence that will further accelerate the research for new materials, according to Evonik.
It's interesting. I don't know if everybody knows Evonik, but, they're a major supplier of raw materials that go into powder coatings, including, a number of different additives, including fumed silicas and fumed alumina, and also cross-linkers, and they're debuting some mineral fillers as well. So they're well integrated into the powder coating supply chain, and this is just real interesting news, Nate.
All right, and finally, Exalta just announced the introduction of the Exalta Bright Futures Scholarship Program. Students studying specific STEM, business, or technical/vocational fields at eligible partner schools in Delaware, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, Texas, or Virginia can apply now through May 12th for renewable scholarships of up to $5,000. You can just do a search for Exalta Scholarship, or it should be in the show notes, a link to the scholarship program if you know somebody that wants to apply or if you yourself are eligible.
That sounds great. I've seen more and more of this lately in the last few years where the major coating suppliers are stepping up to the plate to offer scholarships to encourage people to
next generation.
Yeah.
Bringing them into the fold.
Scientific stuff. Okay, friends. Now it's time for the question and answer portion of our podcast.
Do you have a question? Ask Joe Powder. Well, you can ask him. Ask Joe Powder. He has the answer that'll advance your powder coating. It's the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast.
Okay, our first question comes from Sean Bevis in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is a long one, so hold on to your butts. He says, "Hi, Joe. Been a reader for quite some time now, but never asked this question. We're a multi-substrate powder coater with both batch and conveyorized paint lines. A typical day of powder coating might show we change colors 10 to 15 times, spraying everything from TGIC, super durable, 70% fluoropolymer, and it's all spray to waste. We have about 25 to 30 stock colors, but we might have somewhere in the neighborhood of over 400 different colors total. We might get an order for a special match color, buy 55 pounds of it, and then only spray 30 pounds. Then the leftover will sit on a shelf for months or years until the possibility of using it again comes around. We've actually sprayed 3, 4, 5-year-old powders with no problems, but we also run into a few issues recently. Just within the past year, we've started MEK checking our products to ensure full cure. Since then, we've had 6 jobs where MEK check showed insufficient cure. We'll rebake the parts, but it typically doesn't improve the MEK. The powder softens quickly and often wipes down to the base metal in 10 to 15 rubs. These 6 jobs have all been lighter colors like white, beige, light tan, pink, etc., and have all come from boxes of powder over 3 years old from multiple vendors. It seems like the darker colors, even those that are over 5 years old, can still be used and will cure. We have multiple powder suppliers. We've seen similar results with all the vendors. Our powder storage area is not temperature controlled. The powder storage area will see hot southern days of 100 plus degrees F and cold winter months below 30. What exactly is causing the powder to not cure? Is there some specific constituent in the powder that doesn't age well to temperature fluctuations and moisture? I realize that all powder has a life expectancy and that we're going way over this usage date, but what other factors should we be paying attention to? Thank you so much.
Okay, Sean. Well, these are fascinating but troubling issues that you've been observing. First of all, let me commend you for the versatility and breadth of your operation. It takes a high level of discipline and planning to handle so many colors and chemistries in one shop, so kudos to you and your team. Well done. Now on to your questions. And one thing I want to underscore is you note that powder coatings as old as 5 years can be successfully used and get full cure. So let's just talk about some points that are critical to maintaining the stability of your powder coating while it's in storage. Number one, and we say this at the end of our broadcast every time, keep your powder dry. Not kidding. And, it's not super critical that your storage area have a really, tight range, finite range of humidity, as much as it's imperative to keep the plastic bag, the liner, which contains the powder, sealed tightly when you store the powder. The powders that you receive are supplied in boxes or barrels and have a thick, in the States we'd say 3 to 4 mil plastic liner. And these liners, if they're sealed, if they're closed at the top, essentially isolate the powder from environmental humidity. The thing you want to avoid are open bags, which would allow the powder to absorb humidity and can cause clumping and sometimes chemical reactions. So that's number one. Okay, second, keep your powder cool.
So you can feel cool.
You mentioned that your storage area can see southern temperatures of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's 38 degrees Celsius for our friends in more modern countries than this one. Most powders can endure this exposure. However, if you have a low temperature cure powder, you're going to have problems with clumping and quite possibly pre-reaction at these elevated temperatures. The pre-reaction that could occur will cause an increase in texture that may be unacceptable, and the increased texture of this pre-reacted powder can also impair adhesion due to poor flow and leveling the powder in your oven. I think it's a really good idea that you're checking the MEK resistance of your jobs. One thing that's important to note, though, is that every powder coating will not provide the same MEK resistance. Like, for instance, polyesters typically soften after 25 double rubs, whereas epoxies and polyurethanes, if you're using them, will be virtually unaffected by this test. Hybrids or epoxy polyesters are going to fall somewhere in between polyesters and epoxies, depending on how they're formulated. Your observation that when applying aged light color powders are more likely to fail the MEK resistance than dark colors, it's perplexing to me. But there may be a couple reasons for this. One, the original fresh powder may not be very resistant to MEK, and you're just checking it now. So that could be one cause. The other reason may be a general lack of cure due to maybe these have a higher bake requirement and you're just not getting your parts up to temperature, or you have denser parts or a higher load in the oven. Question for you is, have you checked the actual time and temperature of the parts of various jobs that you run through your ovens? Higher oven loads, either due to heavier parts or more parts, tax your burners more and can keep parts from reaching your specified temperature. So it's really important to verify your part temperature and time at that temperature to ensure full cure. Now, regarding the failure after 10 to 15 MEK double rubs, this is a serious issue. All powders will surpass this test if fully cured. So I'm kind of surprised at the results you're seeing. I'm also surprised that rebaking the parts doesn't improve the performance. I would spray a part and cure it for a very long time at temperature to verify this poor performance that you're seeing. And I think one long bake may provide better cure than 2 short bakes. Regarding color differences equating to different levels of cure, this would only make sense if you're using infrared as a source of heating. Light colors will reflect a high percentage of infrared and therefore heat more slowly and to a lower temperature than darker ones. Alternately, dark colors readily absorb infrared and heat up much more quickly than light colors and certainly than metallics. I really can't see a reason why light colors would age more quickly than dark colors. So, I guess in summary, I didn't give you a complete answer, but I think you're on the right track by checking the MEK resistance of all your powder coating jobs. Poor curing may be due to inadequate time at temperature rather than the age of the powder. Carefully check your supplier's recommended bake parameters, which you'll find on their technical data sheet for the product, and verify them with actual part temperature measurements. And like we always say, keep your powder dry. Make sure you seal your bags after you've done using powder. And it's a good idea to keep it relatively cool.
So you can feel cool.
Just to keep minimizing pre-reaction. So, Sean, thanks for your question, and please get back to me if you've got any further questions, or just let me know how these measures work out. Okay, powder coating friends, it's time for a word from our sponsors.
Gema powder coating systems offer you greater efficiencies while producing high-quality results. We provide the very best in powder delivery, application technology, and connectivity for smarter factory automation. With Gema, you get maximum performance and repeatability whether you are on the shop floor or away from it. For a demonstration, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. When you want to know that everything is covered, complete it with Gema.
The Powder Coating Research Group is a proud sponsor of the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast. PCR is the only independent laboratory dedicated to powder coating technology. We do everything from raw material evaluation, formulating the next generation of coatings, new product development, testing, troubleshooting, training, and consulting. To find out more, visit our website at powdercoatingresearch.com, or you can email Kevin Biller at kevinbiller@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening to the Ask Joe Powder Podcast. All right, our next question comes from Lee Montmayor in Wisconsin. He says, Dear Joe, do you know of a more robust test for hardness than the pencil hardness test? We recently had 4 different labs test a basic black TGIC powder and got 4 very different results. The results range from HB to 6H. The product should have been rated 2H.
Lee, this is an age-old problem in the powder coating world. And there's some reasons for this. First, let's address the variability of the test. This pencil hardness test is the most common, but it's the most inconsistent technique to measure the hardness of a coating. Yeah, the differences that you can see could have to do with subjective operator type factors, like how somebody's pressing on the surface with the pencil. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is pencils, the leads in pencils, have a fundamental variability in hardness due to, number one, lot-to-lot inconsistencies of of lead and in the pencils, differences in manufacturers of the pencil, and also just the age of the pencil. An old pencil is going to be different than a brand new one.
Well, and that's why when we do a pencil hardness test, we usually look at it as a comparison of those different samples at that time. You know, it's like you said, it's the operator could be running the test a little bit differently than someone else runs it, and really this guy saying HB to 6H, that's a ridiculously large range, but it's also not that surprising that it's just everyone kind of runs the test differently. But if you gave them, 4 different coatings and had the same guy run the test, you could say, okay, this one's harder, this one's softer.
Absolutely. It's a comparative test and operator influence for sure, Nate. Yeah. So let's get on to some of the options you have, and it really kind of depends on your budget. First thing you can do is consider a testing sled. In some places, they're called a Wolf-Wilburn testing sled, where it's actually a fixture that you put your pencil in, you secure it, and you just push the pencil held sled across the surface, and then you interpret the results. It takes out that variability of one person with a limp wrist just grazing the surface versus somebody with a power builder who takes a running leap and then jabs the surface with a pencil. So that's one thing you can consider, getting a testing sled. They're not cheap, but they're affordable. Now, if you'd want a more sophisticated and reproducible hardness test, you may want to consider something like the Sward rocker hardness tester or the Koenig pendulum hardness tester. Let's talk about the Sward rocker method first. It employs a technique that relies on the physics that a softer surface affects the amplitude of oscillation of a rocking body. I don't know if you can follow me on that, but somebody gave this a lot of thought when they developed that test method. Basically, the softer surface dampens a rocking disc more quickly than a harder surface does. Please be advised, though, when you run this test, that minor differences in coating thickness can affect your data. The ASTM D2134 covers this technique in detail. And you can purchase a Sward rocker hardness tester from your instrument company, somebody like Bic Gardner or TQC. I think they both carry them. Now, the Koenig pendulum hardness method works on a similar principle. It has to do with dampening. With this technique, the hardness of your coated surface is measured by tracking the dampening effect that the surface has on an oscillating pendulum. You said it was a Koenig pendulum test. And basically this method consists of placing 2 stainless steel balls on the coated surface, and then the balls act as a pivot point at the top of a pendulum. The pendulum is swung from a fixed start position, and it actually has a swing counter. It measures how many swings are counted from that fixed position once you release the pendulum. So more elastic or softer surfaces will dampen more quickly and thus swing fewer times. Of course, harder surfaces will swing more times. This technique is described in detail in ASTM test method D4366. And you can find this at Qualitest, their website, which is worldoftest.com. So I like these methods, and if you can afford them, they do bring in a lot of consistency in your testing. Hope that helps with your quest to find a more consistent hardness test. Best regards, Joe. Okay, everyone, before we go, let's fill you in on some upcoming events.
Hey, friends, where are we going? To an upcoming event.
Okay, coming up the 6th of May, 2021 is the DSCT Focus. show. That's the Plymouth, Michigan automotive-related show. The 22nd and 23rd of June is the Powder Coating Kitchen, Introduction to Powder Coating Formulation. That's the short course that we hold here at the Powder Coating Research Group, and we teach you how to formulate and the basic things that go into a powder coating. You can find out more about that if you want to email kevinbiller@yahoo.com. The 13th through 15th of July, 2021, it's the powder coating conference portion of Powder Coating Week. That's the Powder Coating Institute's week-long series of events in conjunction with CCAI. And that's going to be at the Renaissance Orlando at SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida. The 27th through 29th of September is the Middle East Coating Show. That's in Dubai, UAE. The 22nd through 23rd of September is the Powder Coating Summit, which is also put on by us in Columbus, Ohio, and that's where you can find out about the latest developments in powder coating technology.
And one thing I want to say about the Powder Coating Summit, we've put this thing on for the last 15 years, and I'm really excited about this one. I'm always excited because we always have a great lineup of speakers. But this year, our keynote speaker is Kevin Hales, and he's from AkzoNobel. He's Innovation Manager for Automotive Coatings. And he's going to talk about the future of powder coatings in the automotive world, which there's a lot of stuff cooking now, and it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think we've brought it up many times before where the automotive powder coating has always been kind of a interesting dynamic. Like there were fits and starts in the past where, powder coatings looked like they were really going to take over big parts of the applications there, and then there are other times where they almost, they barely use any powder coatings at all. So it'll be really cool to hear about the new generation, the new electric vehicles, and the new applications that they're finding for powder coatings in that industry.
It's going to be awesome. You can also catch the Ask Joe Powder Q&A, the legacy part of the Joe Powder story, in print. You can find it in Powder Coated Tough magazine, which is the flagship magazine for Powder Coating Institute. You can also find it in Polymers Paint and Color Journal. The masthead is PPCJ, our wonderful friends there. They also have a link to the Powdcast on their website, so you can check it out there. And PCI Magazine, Paint and Coatings Industry Magazine, has it on their website under the Finishing Flash tab.
You can find all of our episodes online at AskJoePowder.com. But really, if you use any sort of podcast app or searching tool to play podcasts, you can subscribe. You can subscribe on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Google, Amazon, Audible, anywhere that you find your podcasts. Just, subscribe to them there, and it'll let you know as soon as a new episode comes out. We try to do them every other Tuesday, but, life happens.
Sometimes we get a little sidetracked.
Okay, and you can look for us on Twitter, a.k.a. Joe Powder. We also have a YouTube channel that will be updating periodically. If you want to ask Joe a question, the email address is askjoepowder@yahoo.com, or you can call in and leave us a message at country code 1-478-2-ASK-JOE. It's 1-478-227-5563. This has been a production of the Powder Coating Research Group. Our sound recording, music, all that sort of stuff is done by Nick Page. Everybody's got a little light under the sun.
And keep your powder dry, my friends.
Thank you for listening to the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast. This episode was brought to you by Gama. Gama's OptiStar all-in-one control unit leads the industry with a design fusing electrostatics and power feed in one compact device. By combining the powder injector and control unit functionality into one device, you get the highest coating efficiency, fastest response times of powder output, and excellent cleaning performance. For more information, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. Configure it, feed it, optimize it, integrate it. Complete it with Gama.
Man. Some days I just don't feel like talking. On the weekend, like, I don't talk to anybody.
You probably like that, huh?
I know. I live at my house by myself.
It's like, hey, I should go over there. He's probably lonely.
I just
Like, no, he's not.
like I'll like yell at my cat twice. Like,
Whether he deserves it or not.
no, he deserves it constantly.